everyone. Hopefully online folks can hear me. Ms. Secretary, would you take the roll, please?
She's very busy. Got a class. I can read it, but. Okay, I'm here. I hope.
He is online.
Okay. The hard thing.
I-
Diana's here. Gus is here. No, that's Jean. No. Nathan's here, right?
Mhm.
Stephanie? I'm here. Yana.
Here.
Yep.
Mhm.
Here.
Be zooming in a second.
Paul. That. I heard us. All right, I got the point of checklist over here. Okay.
Thank you, Joan. Welcome everyone tonight. We do have a couple of presenters on some upcoming ordinances and zoning that the city is going through, and then also a conversation about a proposal for a cell tower at McKnight and Ivy. So Yanni, would you like to
Call to order.
call to order?
Call to order. Should we, just take a motion to approve the last meeting minutes?
Let's fix to the agenda. Yep, motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda second.
I'll second, third.
Okay, we'll just Skype.
All right, you want to move on to the minutes? Last month. Motion to approve.
The minute.
All in favor?
So unfortunately, I do not have your financials tonight because Renee, our bookkeeper, was working on our 990. But I should have them for you tomorrow, so I will send them out via email if there could be a motion to table that until next month.
Motion to table.
All in favor?
All in favor?
So we do have a couple of open board seats. There are actually open board seats in each quadrant. And Thor, are you ready? Okay, so Thor is actually in quad 2 and interested in joining our board. Would you like to say anything? Introduce yourself? And has been attending meetings forever.
I was wondering. Sure.
So we would need a motion to approve Thor to join the board.
Second.
There's plenty of room. Would you like to, are you interested in joining the board?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your name? Okay. Names and people, right? Quad 4. Before you leave, Scott, can you make sure you give me your contact information, address, phone, and email? But we would also need a motion to approve Scott joining for quad 4.
We'll make a motion.
All right. Second. Active table, okay. And then an all in favor?
All in favor?
Opposed.
Anyone opposed?
All right, welcome to the board. We do send out agendas about a week in advance. And like I said, you can see the game tonight. I already have board's contact information, but if you please pass that on, that's great. All right,
Should board look up to us?
yeah, he should, but I don't want to make him
Part of us.
come too close.
And I couldn't learn.
So our presenters tonight, we will start with Bill Dermody, who is with the City of St. Paul Planning and Economic Development, and he will be presenting on the drive-through zoning. Are you ready, Bill?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thanks, Lisa. And I know you're in an interesting environment. So let me know if you can't see anything or you can't hear anything. And then to let you know on your side, I can consistently hear Lisa and Yanni and no one else except for Joanne if she really shouts. But other than that, I'm not really hearing anybody else in the room. But that's okay. Just so you guys know that.
If there are questions, I can relay them to you.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Let me, I want to show you some pictures here to give you an understanding of what's going on. So the city, we haven't updated our zoning code with regard to drive-throughs since the 1980s, if that, maybe before that. And generally drive-throughs are not encouraged by our city policies. Our development as we're moving forward is supposed to be more pedestrian oriented, more transit oriented. Of course, what's here is here, but new development moving forward and drive-throughs are sort of contrary to that. So that's one reason we're updating our code, but also there was a disastrous Starbucks over at Snelling and Marshall that really got people's attention, and they had a drive-through that was really bad. So that added a little urgency to it. We really should have been updating this at some point in time. And there are a range of options on the table. There's, I put a link in the chat for those who have access to that. But you know, you can Google it too, or get the information from Lisa. There's going to be a public hearing in June on a specific proposal, but our planning commission is looking at that specific proposal. They're also interested in, should we just ban drive-throughs altogether? So there's a proposal on the table, but don't limit yourself to that. We may restrict, I'm sure we're going to do something, because although the problematic Starbucks got fixed, that was on their own decision, basically. We never fixed the code, so we still have to fix the code. Something's going to get passed. It's a matter of it's going to be more restrictive, or are we going to get rid of them altogether? So I'm really interested in your feedback. Your district has a lot of interesting drive-throughs, and potentially I could see some sites where they might pop up in the future. So I want to go through that and maybe get your feedback today, and certainly encourage you to weigh in for the planning commission. Either come to the public hearing in June, on June 7th, Friday, June 7th, or send a letter. You could do that as a board, or if your board decides not to do that, you could email me as individuals, and I'd get that to the planning commission. So these are questions that the planning commission is specifically asking, and that link I gave you, there's context with this. It's a full page, so you kind of get the background on it. But we want to hear about your experiences with drive-throughs. And is curbside delivery an okay substitution for drive-throughs ever? Like if we were to ban drive-throughs or make it really hard to do drive-throughs, could disabled people or mothers with children or elderly folks who really benefit from drive-throughs, could they get the same benefits from curbside delivery, which is like calling ahead or ordering on your phone and then somebody comes out to you? Or is that not always work? Tell us more about that. Tell us about, and I've had a lot of opinions on this third one already. I think there's a strong tendency with this one. Are pharmacies, banks, fast food, and coffee all the same when it comes to drive-throughs, or should they be treated differently? I won't tell you what people have been telling me, but it's been pretty strong. And, you know, should we just prohibit them? So if we're going to strictly regulate drive-throughs? Should we just take the next step, make it simple, just ban them going forward? Anything that's there can continue, but going forward, and any unintended consequences that we should be thinking of as we do this. And this is a map. And I know the Taco Bell on White Bear Avenue is missing from this, but we got most of them in District 2. I will fix this map. But there's a certain pattern to where these are in the city. The coffee shops with drive-throughs are both on West 7th. Fast food, we've got a cluster here in Phelan Village area. We've got a cluster along I-94 east of downtown. And then they're on University Avenue, Grand Avenue, West 7th, and Rice Street. They're just certain corridors where these have popped up, not every corridor. And more context for you, I was kind of surprised by this. We only have 2 coffee shops with drive-throughs in the city out of 49. In my head, I thought it was like half of them, but I must be thinking of Maplewood or Roseville or something just across the border. It's really only 2. It was 3 for a short while. Less than 10% of our restaurants have drive-throughs, about half of our pharmacies, about 3/4 of our banks. So it's not all of them, but I thought that was interesting background to keep in mind. You can do these types of businesses clearly without a drive-through. The closest to needing it would be banks. That's pretty close. Most of them have those. And zoning background, this is your neighborhood. The lighter orange around Phelan Village is T2 zoning, which allows drive-throughs with a conditional use permit today. So that might be why we see drive-throughs in that area. And then along White Bear Avenue and a few little clusters elsewhere, you see the red. And the red is business zoning, either B2 or B3 zoning districts, which allow drive-throughs as well. A little bit of industrial that could also allow drive-throughs. Does somebody pop in with a question? Yeah, okay. I won't worry too much about this because we have limited time, but there are amendments on the table that would significantly restrict drive-throughs and increase the amount of queuing space for vehicles that they need to have, allow them in fewer places, require better pedestrian safety. This is among the suite of ideas that are on the table. But since we have limited time, I want to get to discussion more than anything today. And the big reminder with implementation of anything that's in the zoning code is it's only going forward. If it's there today, you can keep doing it unless you expand. So there are a bunch of problems with the drive-throughs. Perhaps the biggest one is off-site queuing. This is the Starbucks at Snelling and Marshall. 14 vehicles in the queue. Our code only required them to have 4. Their own people said, no, we need 10. Well, they needed more than 10. 14 in this picture, anecdotally more like 16 or 17, oftentimes backing up into Snelling. And this is not unique. This is not unique to this coffee shop. It's a problem with a lot of coffee shops nationwide and fast food restaurants nationwide in the modern era. Other issues that have come up are noise, pollution, litter, just the amount of pavement that you need to have is not very pedestrian friendly or environmentally friendly when you have drive-throughs, and it encourages more driving, which generally our policies would move us away from that direction. So what do you have here in your neighborhood? Walgreens up at Larpenteur has a drive-through. Just down from there is the White Castle's got a drive-through. This one notably is it's got no way to walk to the building without crossing the drive-through lanes, which is something we would propose to fix in these amendments. Taco Bell, same deal. You can't get to the building without going across this drive-through lane right by the menu board there out front. You've got a couple here, the Walgreens and the Bank of America, just on the north side of Maryland, Bank of America being very new. Notably, this bank is conforming today, and under what's proposed would be one of the only drive-throughs in the city, about 5 or so, that would remain conforming with the set of options on the table. So I think of this one as about as well designed as you can get for a drive-through. So think of it when do we want to prohibit this sort of thing going forward, or is this the sort of thing we want to encourage? It's about as good as it gets. Is this good enough? Wells Fargo has too many drive-through lanes. It's only supposed to have 3 under today's code, but otherwise it meets code and would meet code. So this is another one that you may think of. Do we want more of these in St. Paul? And then the McDonald's and Dairy Queen, creating this cluster here over in Phelan Village. The Dairy Queen, very easy for pedestrians to get to and from the building. Otherwise, it's mostly conforming, except its drive-through lanes are too close to the apartment behind it. And McDonald's is mostly conforming today, except the exit on Prosperity is a little too close to Maryland Avenue by today's code. This is another one where you can't get to the building, McDonald's, without going across the drive aisles. So that's something that's proposed to be fixed. But you've been living with all of these drive-throughs. You would know better than us whether they're good for your neighborhood or not. And Planning Commission would love to hear from you on that. Perhaps more important, though, is, existing drive-throughs, we know what that's like. But when we're thinking about future development, where might they go? I could very well envision one in the Cub parking lot. This is a large parking lot. Maryland Avenue has access to the freeway. If someone wanted to open up a fast food restaurant or a Starbucks, probably not well, maybe a CVS, probably not a pharmacy or bank, because we've got quite a few of those nearby. Someone's asking about the Dairy Queen. Does it have the possibility, if it's that drive-through, Mike, is as long as they are actively marketing that building for use as a drive-through, the next owner could use it as a drive-through. If they forfeit use of the drive-through for at least 1 year, then they would lose rights to it. So if they're either using it or actively marketing it, then they could continue. So that could be something different. That's something our traffic engineer is very concerned about. There's another Dairy Queen on Ford Parkway that just turned over to a Dave's Hot Chicken. And our traffic engineer is pretty sure that's going to back up traffic onto Ford Parkway. It's just hard to deal with. But in this sort of situation in Cub, how would we feel about a drive-through going in? Is that the sort of thing we want to see in this area, or not? Keeping in mind everything that's going around here, we might have Purple Line nearby in the coming years and that sort of thing. What kind of development do you want to see there? Is drive-through part of the picture? What about, this is White Bear Avenue, just a little south of the Walgreens. I could imagine somebody taking over, I don't know anything about the laundry room and how their business is going, but I see a parking lot and I see being not too far away from Larpenteur Avenue and thinking somebody might want to squeeze in a drive-through along the side of the building at some point in time. How would that work for the neighborhood? Or, I don't know that the Cherry Pit's going away or the parking lot across the street, but either corner of this intersection on White Bear Avenue, I could imagine if Cherry Pit decided they were going to close up shop, somebody might be interested in this sort of site for a drive-through. It's zone B2 today. You could do it pretty easily today, and perhaps under what's being proposed in front of Planning Commission. So that's all I had for you. I wanted to throw it out for discussion with these questions in mind, especially, and see if you have any questions. I see one in the chat. Oh, hi, Karen. Karen has arrived. That's not a question, but be glad to take any questions that you have.
Questions to go?
They propose that existing places that aren't up to current code have to reconstruct their properties to come up to code.
So the question is, as part of the proposal, are any current drive-throughs, will they have to like reconstruct their property to come up to code, or will they be grandfathered in?
No, they would not have to. They would be grandfathered in. The only reason that they would have to come up to code is if they decided they wanted to tear down and rebuild on something other than the exact same footprint. So if they wanted to do a bigger building, then they would have to make sure that their drive-through came up to code.
Mike, you have a question?
Bill, did you say, has it been actually studied and there's evidence or proof that drive-throughs lead to more trash in the neighborhood? I see a lot of it in Ames Lake Park from Wells Fargo, from McDonald's. You know,
Yeah, that's a
Could
good
be-
question. I don't know if there's been a study on that, but I've certainly heard it anecdotally a lot, that there's trash that comes from drive-throughs, especially the fast food, but yeah, we've heard that. So what would happen if planning commission banned drive-throughs going forward? How would the Greater East Side feel about that?
So, Bill, I don't know if you heard, the concern is that oftentimes in drive-throughs, they're blocking sidewalks for pedestrians because of the backup. And is that a consideration as part of this proposal? Or, is there any plans to improve that situation or not?
Good question. Yes, certainly the proposal that's on the table for planning commission would increase the amount of queuing space that you needed to have. So we've looked at studies of drive-throughs locally and nationally and saw that 4 stacking spaces for cars, room for 4 vehicles is not enough. So it's proposed to have a minimum of 6 for pharmacies and banks, 12 for fast food, and 14 for coffee shops, which sounds like a lot more, but it's actually on the low end of what we see in traffic studies. And then it has the extra clause that the traffic engineer could require more through site plan review if they see a study that warrants it. So that's certainly something that's going to be addressed in some way.
Any other questions for Bill?
Are they anticipating any future need for drive-throughs or pot dispensers? Because they might decide the drive-throughs are a good thing for business, probably have the lead drivers.
That's
Somebody's
actually
been
a really
reading the
good-
agenda.
I was gonna say, that's a really good segue to the next agenda item where we're talking about cannabis zoning, but, did you hear that, Bill?
Yeah, I did hear that. That's a good question for Tony, because he's got a foot in both of these. But yeah, only for medical, Nellie says. That's a good question. So we have sort of an other category too, like we have a catch-all where the zoning administrator could make a determination that any other drive-through is similar to some other drive-through. And at this point with medical marijuana or any marijuana, we wouldn't know what it's similar to yet because there isn't enough experience as to how those work. I guess we might walk into it supposing it's something like a pharmacy because it's something like a pharmacy product. If that's something we need to address in code, we haven't done it yet. We could, or we could fall back on that, leave it up to the zoning administrator to determine. But that's a good question to raise.
Perspective on it might be like the high frequency, if they're, like the banks, they're limited to 3 drive-throughs now. Well, typically at a bank, people have to sit there and conduct their transaction. You don't have a lot of cars leaving, you might have a few in queue waiting. But like for the weed drive, they might be just getting your baby, boom, they're out. It might be a higher turnover. type thing. So they
Yeah.
might have different needs for their queue line.
Yeah, and somebody might make use of the old pneumatic tubes in a whole new way. Good point.
So we do,
Way like a planning to be. Anything ever?
so the question is if the planning commission is leaning a certain way at this point, or if you're aware of kind of what the temperature is of the planning commission.
Okay, and Mr. Humus will correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but my sense is there is a significant interest in banning drive-throughs altogether, but also a concern about especially how disabled or mothers with children or elderly folks will be able to receive products and services. So that's why they're asking the questions that they're asking before they went ahead with a ban.
So we'll have one more question for Bill because we do have a full agenda tonight. And then what I can do is I can forward you his information. So if you have any further questions, you can do it. But Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, hi. Have you heard a reaction from businesses to the possibility of banning of drive-throughs? Have they threatened to pull out of the city and go to the suburbs? Or are there other cities that you can point to that have banned drive-throughs, and what's been their experience on the business side?
Good question, Mike. No threats yet. I set out the context at the beginning. Clearly, you can do these businesses without a drive-through because we see it in St. Paul. There's been an uptick in interest in drive-throughs everywhere, including St. Paul, but especially in the suburban areas. I did talk to the Business Review Council and for the city of St. Paul, and there was not a lot of strong opinions, and those strong opinions that we did hear there were anti-drive-through. They asked us, though, to go try to talk to a drive-through developer, and we found one who was just trying to go in on Grand Avenue recently, and haven't heard anything back from them significant. There's a drive-through owner who is on the BRC, and so saw this information and didn't have any reaction to it. Minneapolis banned drive-throughs, though, a few years ago, about 5 years ago, and I have not heard any reports of the world ending over there. I can tell you that there was, during the public hearing process, significant interest and concern from disabled people. And I have not talked to the mayor's advisory committee for disabled people, but I'm going to next week. And certainly will be very interested in their feedback. Boulder, Colorado is another one who has banned drive-throughs. And then there are a handful of smaller communities on the West Coast. And there are a bunch who have almost banned it. Portland, Seattle are two of them where they allow it in just a couple of zoning districts that you don't find very much in the city. And I haven't heard of any major problems with businesses succeeding in those cities.
Curbside is not impacted by this, correct?
There's no proposal to regulate curbside.
They should talk to businesses that have drive-throughs and see how they feel about it. Because we have nothing to push people to go to the next year's community for a 1% from the tax.
Yeah, I suppose we could. I would say that if I owned a drive-through, I would want them banned because it would make my drive-through it would make it more valuable because I would have the drive-through and nobody else could do it. So we're a little afraid of asking existing drive-throughs. We talked to a couple folks, but that's something maybe we can think of a good way to go about that and get that opinion.
Is that because you think the property value will go up then? Because it's zoned to have drive?
If we're locked in with only a certain amount of drive-throughs in the city, that would make those properties more valuable because you can't do it everywhere.
Well, thanks again, Bill, for coming tonight. If there are other questions that come for you, I'll be shooting them to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Nellie Jerome, from, again, the city of St. Paul, and she is talking about, the cannabis zoning that is coming through. So Nellie, I'll let you take it.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I've met maybe a couple of you. I'm Nellie. I'm a city planner. And Tony is here too, but he has to run in about 10 minutes. So he might chime in, but then I think I'll have to leave. But we worked on this zoning study together. So I will share my little presentation. Go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is the same presentation that the planning commission got. We thought it would be good to just keep it standard so everyone gets the same information. So I'll start with some background. As many people know, cannabis was legalized, but there is no licensing yet, so you can't really buy it. The Office of Cannabis Management, which is the state, is planning to begin licensing in early 2025. So there's still no businesses, there's no cannabis businesses anywhere in the state yet. So when it comes to cities, we have a little bit of control. We can do some zoning control for cannabis businesses, and we can also limit the number to no fewer than 1 in 12,500 residents. So we have to have that minimum. We can't prohibit them. We'll have to have some. We can also prohibit them within up to 1,000 feet from schools and up to 500 feet from daycares and or certain park features. So like a playground or certain features that kids might use. The state has established a 10% tax on all cannabis products. Cities will get a proportion of that tax based on currently based on the number of cannabis businesses located within that city. And then I will also note that outdoor advertising of cannabis products at all is totally prohibited. So there should be no outdoor advertising. So our zoning study overview, we looked at the 16 state license types that will be coming out in early 2025. We looked at what they allow, the kinds of activity they would allow, the products that they would be involved with. And we looked at our zoning code and we tried to match up similar activities that are currently allowed in St. Paul, where we could fit in these future license land uses. We did not make a distinction between medical cannabis and recreational cannabis, which actually works out because there's a draft amendment at the state that will also not make a distinction between the two. They still will allow medical under basically as they have been, but the new rules won't make it the distinction. We also looked at 29 other cities that had already legalized cannabis, and some of them had 0 distance requirements at all. And then some of them had distance requirements between 200 feet and 1,000 feet. We didn't see any cities that had more than 1,000 feet from any other land use. So we looked at all that research and then made 2 basic maps with our distance options. So the state maximum option, which was the 1,000 feet from schools and 500 feet from daycares and parks. So this is what would happen if we went that maximum route. All of the blue blobs are 500 feet from a daycare park and then 1,000 feet from school. So, and then all the pink is retail, where a cannabis business could go because it's retail and it would match with current zoning, which is retail, and these pink parcels. So if you'll see, the blue blobs are kind of overshadowing a lot of the major retail corridors in the city, which would mean that new cannabis businesses could not go there, which would essentially push a lot of those cannabis businesses to be concentrated in like the industrial areas only, which aren't near schools. You can kind of see there's, you know, some industrial that's not overshadowed by the blue. So this is the maximum. And then we also looked at the a minimum proposal. I guess it's not a minimum, but it's our staff proposal. So it's based on existing distance requirements that are currently used in some of the liquor rules. And it's also the distance of a short block in the city of St. Paul. So the north-south block is around 300 feet. So if we did this 300 feet buffer option, you can see that a lot of the retail corridors, commercial corridors in the city are still pink. They are not overshadowed by blue. They're not, this only looks at schools, so it doesn't look at daycares or parks. So we just focused on schools. So this would permit new cannabis businesses in a greater diversity of areas throughout the city, and it wouldn't end up concentrating them in any one space. So our amendments, this is just a summary of the amendments. For cannabis retail, we would recommend that they be allowed in mixed use areas, commercial corridors, neighborhood nodes. Larger retail, so anything over 15,000 square feet would require a conditional use permit, so you'd have to go through the planning commission. In industrial areas, you would not, you could go bigger because it's industrial, so you would not require that conditional use permit. And this is intended to accommodate retail sales of a full range of cannabis and hemp products. So there's a lot of hemp products that are currently on the market, which is what you've seen in like grocery stores and hemp, low dose hemp stores. And then for the lower potency hemp derived edibles, which is what you're seeing now, these would just be considered general retail. They're basically already general retail, so we wouldn't want current businesses that are selling them to have to stop selling them. They still have to get a state license, so they still have to apply and meet requirements from the state, but the city wouldn't say you have to stop doing what you've been doing. And then the general retail would be allowed in mixed use areas, commercial corridors, and neighborhood nodes, but they would not be permitted to sell the high dose cannabis products. They'd only be permitted those low dose hemp products. So these are where the current low dose hemp products businesses are located in St. Paul. These are the ones that are registered. There's about 178 so far, and we have only had 3 cannabis related complaints lobbied, and then 2 of those complaints were resolved. So they went in and they found that the businesses were complying, and they so only one of them was actually not complying. And this has been, I think, almost 2 years so far of having hemp legalized, maybe a year and a half. Oh, Tony, you want to add something?
I was going to say it's been 20 months.
20 months. Yeah, so these are all the ones that are registered in the city of St. Paul, and they're pretty spread out because we haven't had zoning concentrate them in any certain area.
Yeah, I guess I'll add just one thing to that too. So a lot of these businesses are selling these as like accessory to their main business. So a lot of these are like restaurants that have hemp drinks on their menu now, or bars, things like that. And we've had a couple stores that have started that are, you know, quote unquote dispensaries right now, but they could only sell hemp derived edibles until the office starts licensing in 2025.
So this is our manufacturing cultivation side of it. So you have the business retail, and then you'll have manufacturing cultivation licenses. We have proposed 3 amendments related to manufacturing and to cultivation. The first one is small manufacturing. So these are going to be under 15,000 square feet, and they would be in most commercial corridors that already allow things like small manufacturing. Now I can't think of off the top of my head. There's a long list of similar like small manufacturing businesses. So this wouldn't be new. This would kind of fit into what's already there. And then larger scale production, manufacturing, cultivation could go in the dark green areas on the map. So that's your industrial zoning districts. That would be over 15,000 square feet, can only go in the dark green. And then we did not think that this part of the world / an urban area would have outdoor cultivation, but in case somebody wanted to do like a rooftop or I'm not sure, you know, come up with some creative way to do it safely outside, we regulated it under our agricultural zoning. So they would still need a conditional use permit, which means they still need to go through staff review and planning commission and have any outdoor cultivation reviewed. It's not likely, but you know, you never know. And this is also how we're setting this up. The dark green versus the light green would be similar to the current regulation of craft breweries versus national breweries. So craft breweries are like small, they might have a bar or something connected, and they would that's what you would see in the light green, light industrial areas. And then your larger like Summit big breweries can only be in the dark green industrial. And then there's just a few other weird state licensing types. So there's two that allow like transportation of cannabis products, and that's package delivery, and then cannabis transport. So the transport one is you're transporting cannabis, you're licensed to transport cannabis between two businesses. So maybe a manufacturer or a cultivator to a retail facility. And then a cannabis like delivery license would allow you to transport it to a consumer. And these are both from the state. So we've amended our current code to allow these as accessory uses. And then also to allow, in case, we don't think this will be very big, but if somebody wants to start a specific cannabis transport business, they could do that as well. Cannabis testing facilities, we added that to a list of like small businesses that similar to like a small medical lab. So that's like no change in similar uses that we currently have. And then a craft brewery / distillery / I think winery also that maybe already makes cannabis products could continue to do that, because we've also added that as proposed as a accessory use to an existing craft brewery, distillery, winery. And then we did have to amend bike parking. So any cannabis business is required to have bike parking. This is our timeline. So we've been to the Comprehensive and Neighborhood Planning Committee, which was March 28th. We've been to Planning Commission once. And this is wrong. Sorry. The Planning Commission public hearing will be on June 7th, not May 24th. I can share a more updated timeline. And then hopefully by end of September, what we have as a proposed zoning amendment would pass. And then in early 25, again, it's when you would start seeing licenses from the state. So that is the overview timeline. If anyone has questions, you can just email cannabis@ci.stpaul.mn.us. And then we also have a city website, which is very easy, stpaul.gov/cannabis. And that's all I have, and I can take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for? Yeah. Why don't you come a little closer to the microphone so then she can hear you, and that way I don't have to interfere.
How is the city like taking into consideration already like shops that are already selling smoke related material in our neighborhood? Like, you know, like there might be one right down the street from me. Can a cannabis shop open right next door to them or not?
So yeah, we don't have any regulations that prohibit a cannabis business from opening next to any other business unless it's a school. So then we would be proposing the 300 feet. If it's already like a smoke shop, I think the rule is that this like smoke shops can only have 90% of their retail be from tobacco. So far, there's nothing to prohibit them from selling 10% of their retail is cannabis, but that might be something to consider. I know that it's been mentioned by other staff that we might want to separate those uses, make sure that like tobacco shops can't sell cannabis. But so far in the draft, and from the city at least, that's not something we have written yet.
Another question, it seems like your proposal or your amendment, you're saying is 300 feet from schools, but you're talking about 1,000. So I'm a little confused on what that means on everything, because you're saying one thing, showing another thing, and I don't understand it.
Yeah. I could take it with Nelly.
Yeah.
So in the state law, it gives maximum distance requirements that we can adopt, but there is no minimum. And so what we did in that mapping analysis is we started by testing the maximum to see what effect that would have in St. Paul. And if we were to max out everything, 62% of the parcels that would permit general retail couldn't have a cannabis business. And also it would result in cannabis businesses being concentrated in industrial areas and then specific neighborhoods. So if we were to max that out, essentially Energy Park Drive would be the place where all these businesses would concentrate because that's the only place they could legally be established. The 300 feet is what we are proposing. And so that was that second map. And under that proposal, most commercial corridors in the city could have a cannabis business. And it would result in a more dispersed rollout of cannabis businesses in St. Paul.
So I have 2 more comments. Sorry for everybody. But I think it's interesting that we just got off of the city wanting to ban drive-throughs, but yet they are willing to put cannabis shops for a great tax base for them. I think that's very interesting, and that we're able to approve these things and get these things through, but we're able to ban drive-throughs. And then also another concern is I see the Heights brand new community that we're going to be putting together is in dark green and it's industrial, and that's kind of a shame to see that this possibly could be a production facility over there. Thank you.
Jeanette, you have, I think, like I said, I know it's easier if you just go with the microphone.
Hi, I'm Jeanette. I'm a little bit confused. So if cannabis is something like marijuana? Okay, if that's being the fact, and then you presented that files is being packaged and distributed. People been going to jail for years for that type of action. Now you guys want to make it legal because the state, for me, my opinion, to make money when you put people in jail for selling that stuff. Now you want to put it in our neighborhood again for what? What is going to, I don't understand that. And that's my concern. I don't understand because you're doing a flip-flop. It's okay if y'all do it, but if somebody else, the people that y'all put in jail all that time could do it, but now it's okay. Y'all need, yeah.
So two things, and this is outside of the zoning ordinance, but this is in the state law. So as a part of passing this, the state is going to begin expunging records of people who have been convicted of cannabis related crimes. The second thing is those people that have been convicted will get priority in establishing these stores. So there's a social equity component, and all of those people that have been convicted of these cannabis crimes will now get the first crack at opening a legitimate legal cannabis business.
Understand that, but it still boiled down, it's still drugs transaction, regardless. how you look at it or what you try to make it look prettier. It's still illegal. And so even though you bring the people that get the first crack because they in the facility, since the government, say whoever, realize they can make money now you're gonna correct this. It's just not right. That's all. Just not.
Yeah, only those that have $250,000 for a permit can sell weed. But if you share it with your neighbor, you go to jail, just like all those was. That's a bureaucracy, isn't liberty.
Any other questions for Nellie and Tony on the zoning?
How many permits is the city looking at allowing to start with?
So there's not currently a cap. There's at the state level, they might propose a cap. It's like kind of TBD. There's a draft. They would have a first round, so pre-applications. And again, the pre-applications are only for like the social equity applicants, so people who may have been convicted in the past, they get first opportunity. And there are caps on those that are proposed, but nothing like written in stone about caps yet.
Yeah, in the draft the draft bill, it's 200 statewide. And then they talked about potentially doing regional caps if there's like, say, all of them are in the Twin Cities. They want to make sure that kind of the distribution network and stores are spread out throughout the state. But at the first 2 years, we're looking at probably 200 statewide.
And there's nothing at the city level either, to be clear. We don't have city caps.
Yeah, I know with liquor sales, there's caps on that.
Yep. Yep. And with this, Nellie mentioned this at the beginning, we have to take a certain amount, so we have to allow at least one per 12,500 residents, which I think is around 30 something, 38, I think at a minimum is what we have to have in St. Paul.
Jeanette, you had one more question?
Yeah.
So again, that's a state issue. This isn't what these folks are working on. But, is there any statistics as to increasing crime or anything that this zoning will, address, or is that part of the conversation?
Yeah, we nothing in our local St. Paul code specifically addresses that. Again, it's not really in the zoning realm, but we did look at crime as part of the research, and we didn't find any correlation between, like, in cities that had legalized it, if they saw more crime around those areas or not. There's no like standard like increase or decrease that we could find across the board.
Yeah, the studies were kind of all over the place. So some of them found reductions in crime. Some of them found increases at the beginning, but then sharp reductions after a couple of years. I think in particular, like in Denver, that happened because, it was new. And back then, especially, they had to have a lot of cash on hand because they couldn't access the traditional financial system like other businesses could. But as it went, crime dropped a lot. And I think one of the reasons is a lot of these have like security guards inside. And so they've even seen reductions in crime. One study found a reduction in crime like around dispensaries. And I think it's because there's security in there. And so if there's stuff happening around the dispensaries, a lot of times their security will like deal with those issues and get the police involved.
Well, thank you, Nellie and Tony, for coming tonight. If anyone has any further questions, I will email out or. Okay.
Oh, you talked about litter at drive-throughs and stuff. What about these vape pens? Or they have vapes now that are discarded all over the place. It's a little electronic device that's littered, and I'm sure that's really not good for our environment. But then if we have hot vaping products sold, and then it runs out, it's discarded, kids could run across that, take a puff, and boy, there's still something in it. So is there any way the planning commission can, like, institute something like the old bottle deposit at the grocery store, where you put a deposit for bottle, but then when you bring the bottle back, you give your deposit back. So that we're more assured of these things not being littered, one, and then not falling into the hands of kids that find a discarded vaping tool.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that's not really in the scope of the zoning study or what we could do with zoning as a tool. I think it would be great if the businesses that make those vape pens offered that, deposit, because they do tend to be littered. But it's not really something we could do. We could use the zoning code for, unfortunately.
Well, we do have one more item on our agenda tonight, so if there are any questions or anything, I will definitely forward them on the, and then does that email go directly to you, Nellie, or does it go to a team?
Yep, it goes to just me and Tony.
Perfect. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
We have one final item for, our land use RAMA tonight. And that is, there was a proposal to add a cell tower on basically the railroad property at McKnight and Ivy. And I understand, Chris, it's been kind of postponed, but there were a couple of questions from neighbors on it, and I thought we'd just kind of keep it on the agenda.
Yeah, I put a little presentation together with some visuals to help with that. And I just got word that it was postponed even further because they were missing an analysis that I was looking for, and they didn't think they would be able to get it to me in time for the May 30th meeting. So the public hearing is going to be postponed till June 13th. Okay, so with that, I'll just do a short presentation on the antenna. I don't think I've met any of you yet, but my name is Chris Hong. I'm a city planner for the city of St. Paul. And so this is where the antenna is being proposed. This parcel that the railroad tracks are on is a really long one. So I kind of zoomed in on the approximate location of where it would be. And the applicant would be leasing a 50 by 50 foot area to put the antenna. And the applicant is City Switch, and they're being contracted by AT&T. And this is just some more visuals so that you can get a sense as to where the antenna is being proposed. And the application is for a conditional use permit for a 195 foot monopole cell phone antenna. And these are coverage maps that were provided by the applicant, the green being great coverage and the red being poor coverage. And the applicant is building the antenna to address the poor coverage area. So the zoning code allows an antenna up to 100 feet, and they would like a modification of the development standards to allow the maximum antenna height to be 195 feet, which is what they're proposing. They provided these helpful renderings to help you visualize what that might look like. The code requires that increasing the maximum height of an antenna is allowed. It's allowed to be considered if it shows that like 100 foot antenna, which is what is permitted, is impractical for some reason, if it's because of the topography or like the surrounding vegetation or something. And I requested from the applicant a coverage map of what could be achieved through a 100-foot antenna, and they have yet to provide one for me, which is why the public hearing has been postponed. And so they have not demonstrated to staff that that this 100-foot antenna, which would be allowed, would be impractical and would not be able to operate as a cell phone antenna. And so I requested, I have recommended denial of that modification. The antenna would be permitted, but at the allowable height. And so, like I said, the zoning committee, it was postponed to June 13th. And if you'd like to participate, you can come to the zoning committee meeting in person, or you can submit comments either in support or in opposition to either of these email addresses. They'll both get to me. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Sorry, Chris, we do actually have a question from Joan. So,
Yeah, I live really close to this. I got the letter and all my neighbors did. And because they know I'm on the district council, they've been talking to me about it. They have a few concerns. The first concern they have is, you know, we already have a tower not that far. It's on Cottage. And there's also one up on Stillwater, right off of McKnight as well. They're wondering, with this tower, will we get better coverage than we have now? Because we have terrible cell phone coverage now in our, you know, we get like 2 bars, maybe 3 sometimes. And that's one of their concerns is it going to help our neighborhood, or because of the height, is it going out away from us that we're not getting anything better? That's one of the concerns they have.
With the greater height, it would be able to reach a greater distance. It wouldn't necessarily like provide poor coverage right where it is, like creating like a donut of coverage. So the height would reach more areas. It wouldn't exclude you. And the antenna that you were talking about before, I don't know, like, I don't really know anything about it. But it would really, like, whether you'd be affected by the antenna really depends on whether you your cell phone is through AT&T, and because that's who would be operating through operating this antenna. Yeah, I think that would be the biggest factor. And if you don't get your cell phone through AT&T, I don't think your coverage would be affected.
Okay. And then the other concern now, there's a lot of elderly neighbors, and they're very concerned about the height and how well will it be. I know to me it sounded silly, but I told them I'd ask. They want to know how well grounded is this going to be with all the high winds we get? And who's going to take care of cleaning up the property around it? Right now, that is a dump site. Everybody in the neighborhood uses it in that way. I mean, not everybody, but there's right now you could go and there's mattresses sitting there. So they're wondering who will manage it? Will it be better kept up? And they're also concerned about how sturdy is this? Is it going to fall? You know, what about the wind? I mean, this is concerns that people are coming to me with. So can you answer some of those questions for me?
Yeah, whether or not it gets approved at whether it's approved at 100 feet or 195 feet, it will still need to go through site plan approval, and the city engineers will be able to study the foundation details. Like, I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't tell you whether their plans are sound or not, but the city engineers will be able to take care of that. And they were required to do so before building it. In terms of litter and whatnot, that land is owned by the railroad. And so City Switch would not necessarily be responsible for that. So if you have complaints today about garbage, I would contact the Department of Safety and Inspections and lodge a formal complaint, and the owner will be forced to address that issue.
they know us well.
They know me very well. Don't worry, they don't get my name because everybody turned to me. So those are some of their concerns and they really, and I understand their concerns. I mean, I live really close to it. And the people really close, like the man that lives right across, we saw his picture of his house up there. He said to me the other day, you know, do I really want more promotion in where we live? We already have the railroad coming through all the time. And that was another thing one of the people said, and I don't believe this is an issue, but I'll ask it so I can say I asked it. They're wondering if because of the railroad, how close it will be to where the tracks are. We have very long, noisy, loud trains. Like today, we had one that was 125 cars and it's full. That's what it looks like. And it's very heavy and this structure will be able to withstand that kind of commotion, I'm sure, but I want to ask it so I can say I asked.
Yep, the applicant is working with the railroad company, and there is a setback requirement in the code as to how far this can be built from the railroad tracks. Those will have to be those requirements will have to be met, and that'll be studied during the site plan review process.
How soon will we know if this tower is going to be built?
Well, the zoning committee meeting would be on June 13th, and then they provide a recommendation to the planning commission, who provides final approval, and that is the following week. So it would be the 22nd.
And will they let neighbors again know? The people that all got letters this time, will we get letters again telling us anything more about what's happening?
I don't believe so. You got a notice because there is a public hearing, and it is to notify you about the public hearing. The planning commission meeting, there would not be a public hearing there, so you wouldn't necessarily be notified of that.
No, I mean, what I meant, the results, will we get a letter or get any information about the results? What is happening exactly? You know what I mean? Like, when is it gonna happen? What's gonna go on? You know, that kind of stuff.
I mean, you can sign up for the City of St. Paul like newsletter, and so you can find out the results of planning commission meetings, or I'm sure you can request that your district council send out the results if there's a lot of neighborhood interest in that. Or you can email me.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for your time. I really need to make sure that I can tell neighbors what's from the people who know, not just what I think. Thank you.
And I'm sure Lisa will disseminate my email to anyone who would like it.
Mike, did you still have a question?
Well, I'll follow up briefly on Jones. I mean, are these structures tornado proof, for instance? If it's on a 50-foot lot in the middle of it, only 25 of the 195 feet are going to cover it. When it falls, it's going to fall 175 feet on someone else's property.
So the code requires that the antenna, when it is built the height of the antenna plus 38 feet away from the closest residential building. And so the closest residential building from this antenna is 250 feet. So that is to safeguard against any natural disaster that might knock this over, even though I'm sure it'll be built very soundly.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got one more question for you.
So, I'm not familiar with what these towers really look like because I don't pay attention to them, but can you climb this tower? Or is there going to be like a security fence around it, or is this something that there will be a security fence around it?
They do, yeah.
They do? Okay, that was my question.
Yep,
Because I
they
didn't
get
want kids
fenced
climbing it or
and
damaging it.
it's also like, it's literally just a pole. There's not like, there's nothing to climb to.
The cell tower is still in my neighborhood, and I have a couple questions for you. So, ICE is already going to be increasing our light pollution with the industrial over there. And of course, there's probably going to be like a red light on the top of that cell tower at 190 feet, right? How does that light like cast around our neighborhood?
They are not permitted to have a red light at the top. That's an FAA requirement.
Wait, so they won't need any light at the top?
Yes,
Oh,
they,
Okay, okay, so then the other question would be, is there any like proposal to make this look like a Christmas tree instead of a straight pole, right, like in the back of my neighborhood?
well, because it's gonna be so tall, even at the allowable height, I think the most appropriate color would be kind of the color of the sky, which is kind of a light blue, whitish color, which is what is proposed. So I think making it look like a tree would not disguise it any better.
But there is ways to disguise cell tower, right? They can do
I,
it.
I suppose.
Yeah, and then my other question is, you know, this is a location, but we are gonna have apartment complexes going up on the corner of McKnight Carpenter at some point. That elevation up there is probably just about the highest, probably a pretty high elevation up there. Why can't that cell tower go on top of those apartment buildings instead of being in front of all of our houses and stuff like that?
There isn't currently a building now that it can be built on, and the applicant is proposing an antenna now.
And if we had any suggestions as a district, we could forward those to you directly or zoning.
Yeah,
I'm
Chris,
sorry,
how would you, that's okay. How would you like, comments? Does it go to you directly or does it go to planning commission? Who should we send concerns about?
You can send the emails straight to me or to the zoning secretary. They end up going to both of us anyway. They would be sent through me so I can address any comments or like any common themes going through the public comments, but they would also be included in the zoning committee packet going to the planning commission members.
Have the companies that want to put this tower in, they provided any safety data about the safety of those antennas, like radiation or anything for the houses really close to it?
Did you hear that, Chris?
Yes,
Oh,
they haven't because the application does not require that kind of information. But if you are concerned about that, that is certainly something you can address in a public testimony.
questions for Chris?
So just to follow up, so it's put on hold currently because they can't prove that the extra 95 foot was.
Yes, so they were set to be on the agenda for tomorrow, with my recommendation being that it be built at 100 feet. And they wanted to provide an analysis that I said that was missing, which was what would be covered with the allowable height, which is at 100 feet. And they feel that my recommendation might change with that additional analysis.
Well, we support you. Why do people?
Well, thank you again, Chris. If there's something comes up with a question or something, I will forward it on. And then if the board chooses to make a motion for, against, or whatever, I'll send that on to you as well as the secretary.
Yep, I am dropping my email in the chat there. Lisa, you also have it. So, and the email for the zoning secretary and my email is also on the public hearing notices that many people received.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding this one or any of the presentations we had tonight, are there, any specific action you would like to see us do? Sorry, what's that? I said, regarding any of the presentations that we have, is there any specific action that we as the district council should take?
Well,
What would you like to do? Oh, okay. Sure. Sure. Um, yeah, Nellie, if you're still on, could you, and if you're not, I will still email you tomorrow morning. Could
I'm
you
here.
send me your oh, great, thanks. Can you send me your PowerPoint so that I can send it out to the board?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. So I'll send it out to you in the morning.
Can we vote for the else?
Something the cell tower. With that. The avenue. And technology. But actually, technology. And because it was done. There's a lot of options. For us, I think that we making the stats. That's not,
So Nathan, are you making a motion to oppose?
I guess I.
Okay, is there a second?
Can I hear the proposal again, please?
Oppose the cell phone.
Guess what I also is to that together. To make a proposal that encourages the opportunity that may and then there are another opportunity for them to decide another way.
So for those of you online, Nathan just put a motion to oppose the cell tower in the neighborhood, that there's other places, and especially with the heights coming in, there may be other opportunities that won't impact the neighborhood as highly. Is that pretty good? Yeah.
Just for discussion. I know, the reason it's along the railroad is because AT&T has easement, with what they call the 800 trunks. And those are the actual copper lines that go from city to city. And that is the one route that goes out of the shop. And AT&T has. I second the city has jurisdictions different than all actuality. Because it's federal.
We can still send a letter that we don't support it. The cannabis part? Sure. I'll add it to the agenda. Do you want city staff to come back? Do you want city staff to come back? Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's go back to the motion that's on the floor. That has been seconded about opposing the cell tower. Is there any further discussion on that? So, it kind of depends on the situation. With this one, I think it would probably be beneficial, and for someone to maybe make an amendment to someone's motion, that at this time, we do not have enough information to support something like this. And that we would request that, the service come and make a presentation to our board. But what it does is it gives city staff more ammunition to make them abide by what the city recommends. I mean, sometimes it's almost like it's too soon because the city doesn't look like it's gonna do anything. I think in this situation, it would just support the city's request for them to do right. Does that make sense? I mean, it kind of depends. Yeah, I mean, 'cause they can always ask us for extensions to make sure that they get the information to them. We can push. I don't know if it'll. But we can try. So there, the motion is on the floor to oppose cell tower at 0 McKnight. And request until we actually get a receive a presentation from the provider. And I think that's a piece of issue. So all in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, I will write that letter tomorrow. And let's see if we can get them. If they want to push it through, could we propose that they attend the June, and what's the listening session? June 5th listening session, have them present that. Because I think the hearing right now is June 7th. Or no, was it June 7th? Yeah, June, yes. Okay. Right. Right. We can always, if that date doesn't work, we can always set up a Zoom folks to ask questions of that. Oh, we always have a video. Okay. All right. Any other actions that you guys want to take tonight?
Well, addition of life. So.
All right. Is there a second? Oh, sorry. Oppose the prohibition of drive-throughs in the city.
In that. Like just.
There a second? Oh, sorry, Paul, I didn't hear you. Okay. All right, further discussion?
My concern with that is I don't feel like I have enough information to really understand. You know, I know they said, well, they could change it depending on what kind of business it is and all that. I kind of like to know more about it before I made a vote, because I don't really understand enough about where they would be and why they would be there. I just think about, as a walker, I hate drive. Because when they come out of that drive, it's as bad as crossing an intersection. They don't look for you when you're walking across, but I mean, I'm not trying, that's not the only, I just don't understand enough about why you would say a pharmacy was different than a, private than anything else, or why, what they were talking about with different places and stuff. I didn't quite get all that. I kind of like more information, like,
It looks like Bill is gone, but I can certainly get some clarifying in his documents and some clarifying. If you want to send me some questions specifically for him, and then what I'll do is I'll relay the answers to everyone.
Just one. A well-designed parking lot, the people, the customers are coming all. Either way, whether it's going to drive through or not. If it's well designed. Then if there are problems that we got us. Blank bad, why is this whole city, this was gonna work? This was about.
But it's only new drive-throughs, so let's confirm that. It's not, anyone who has a current drive-through is,
And like,
Yeah.
pointed out. Current properties that already have.
Right.
And then the issues of, if they wanna upgrade their property, then they have.
Right.
It's
correct.
the baddest, it seems to.
Wow. Correct. But just to clarify too, that what they're proposing would not change that situation. This is only for new or renovated buildings, so. Any further discussion on that motion?
Yeah, there is.
That's true. Each town is different. Yanni, you were.
Yeah, and I would say in corridors that have a lot of drive-throughs like Suburban, even Case Avenue off of by where the French immersion school is, there are many bags of trash thrown out from fast food places. And I had proposed a couple, I think, year and a half ago, that we try and find a way to find these fast food places for them. This is one way to fill them. We could, all of Labor Avenue, why do that? Especially the Purple Line, it could turn into a whole fast food lane, just like Suburban. And I don't think that's what we want right back there. Maybe. Yeah.
So there is a motion on the floor to oppose the prohibition of drive-throughs. Are we ready to take a vote? All in favor, say aye. Paul, are you an aye? All opposed?
Nay.
Me.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, I think what we can do though, is we can still ask for more clarification and we can bring it back up. I mean, it's not too late to make a decision. And we'll, ask Bill to, oh. Okay, sorry, that was not what she was saying to them. We'll ask Bill to answer those questions to the best of their ability, and then we can rediscuss and see where we want to go. So, speaking of date, our next board meeting is scheduled for Juneteenth, which is a national holiday. Do you still want to have the board meeting that night? Or are you interested in rescheduling?
So you should have Or ever just cancel, say,
Oh, we can't cancel because we got a lot of stuff happening.
yes.
And in fact, we already have St. Paul Urban Tennis wants to come and talk about their proposed facility being built on the old dump
I
site.
shouldn't be 12.
Um,
Yeah, that right here.
so what I was talking to Yanni about, and I would like to propose to all of you is, instead of having a June and July meeting, having one meeting on June 12th. Is that right? June 12th, because there's some vacation scheduling in between
Which day, June 12th?
June 12th, which would be typically executive committee meeting night. Does June 12th work for everyone? Okay. Could we bring you in our friends and?
You can send it.
Yes.
It's possible.
Okay, so then what we will do is we will, is it June 12th we were gonna do or July 12th? June 12th? No, this was a one of because of the Kaboom design meeting, so we'll be back at Hazel Park. No, I'm still working on it, Mike. Short answer, but still working. Marietta, is there anything that you wanna talk about?
Yeah, I have some questions on tires. For experience, it would be in the second, one of things, and then increase. Getting that. I basically started those things, right there, and not money in it. So I'm here looking for something like that, we're gonna, it's the, there are two special events can be on. One's Tuesday, June 25th, that, is the Fire Rec Center, and the annual picnic and water gates. So, that's 6 to 7:30 p.m., so, got that. Yeah. I saw. Up to the. Yeah, thank you, friends.
Yeah, I do have a suggestion, and it has to do with our letter of support to Habitat. And since we gave that letter, there have been a lot of changes that they have not followed through with. And one is taking the community plan as all electric geothermal site. We said they were going to look into it, and further questioning, I can ask me questions all along from Habitat, and they didn't even do a cost analysis. Then there was a local contractor situation. Most of these are not local contractors. And the first two lots or streets blocks that we approved or gave letter for, 1 and 2. And I'm just wondering how everybody feels saying that we're not happy. This is the largest project they've done in the country ever. And to disregard, you know, the community work, the hours that were put in, you know, with hours in, a lot of stuff. They didn't care, they just chose the rule, the stamp it, I still, this is, very frustrating to do that. They're asking questions to cost analysis, and they just don't think they have it show.
Full site, not the habitat.
Given the lands in the city. There's slab on grade, no basements. The cost analysis for the build itself is still $800,000. It's such private contractors can then and utilize habitat for financing. And it'll probably cost a lot. So it's frustrating. It's huge number, and you not want to support the building, but rush to that keeps the, again, that is still events, and referrals to change different things for habitat. It's all because, they had in July,
No,
wait,
October.
October, okay. And, it's, all to get it set up so they can accept all the volunteers and build this thing. And I just, it's a huge difference. Something like that, or like you said, it's the options that I work on, but that's good. I keep the weather supporting, that's the three options for us. Yeah, three, what keep it as it is, add a memo, last meeting, and these things. And then, I will send it, yeah, so at this point. Yeah, I just wanted to get a feel from the rest of the communities. How this is. Right now, we're supporting them. Housing for a while. Because without the geothermal, cost of living expenses is high. All of them. That's cheap, that's what it is. Even though they're doing a passive air, heat pump, it does not produce the same numbers as stream. That's why I'm asking you to refuse to.
Like a comment, we're using words like approval, support, yeah, because we are not, I just want to reinstate that we are not an approving organization, but we can, you know, send support or not support, send, you know, rescind support at any time. But we are not the ones who are approving it, so I just wanted to make that clear, especially we've got new folks. There's a motion? So Yanni is proposing a motion to rescind our support of the Habitat for Humanity blocks 3 and 4.
And you need a second.
We need a motion, we need someone to make that. motion. No, not as president, unfortunately. Okay. Is there a second? Question? So maybe what we can do is, Yanni, can you send your 3 ideas with your permission to the board? Let them review the board, and then if you could send some backup, like bullet points on what your concerns are. And then we can do a conversation via email. Just because I think we're getting close to time. And then perhaps that would clear up some of and we can vote as a board on which option is the best. Does that make sense? You can, yeah, absolutely. Your bylaw does allow you to vote through email. Code. You cool? Perfect. So motion for our president to do some work. And send out 3 options and then have the board vote via electric.
Okay, so you want me to write up 3 different options of what our request is, or just what the information?
The 3 different options that you had said that you had for the board to take.
Okay,
And then some bullet points of kind of the reasoning behind it, just so people understand kind of what our options are and what some of the reasoning behind it is. And then that way the board can have a little more educated. And I know that the hearing is coming back soon, so it's right. All right. Any further things for neighborhood concerns, questions? No, I know. From your words to Mr. Derek Queen, or just me, Terry Queen, yes. Further?
let's stay.
Is there a second? Thank you. And we will see you all on the 12th. Thank you. Thank you.
What's the next one? We can help me with it. Right, so I guess for each one is from the city.
Yes.
Right? That's being in Florida, like that qualification, like it's for financial assistance for $2.5 million. We actually giving.
It's right, it's with the experience. Basically what they're doing is they're getting these circles. So putting in for the conference, so the city is proposing to keep us. I mean, you have. The lot. So that's very, very, I like your perspective on that, but I certainly,
I do live with saying, they're giving some tax, it's property tax.
this. I believe I use I am, but I think that is a different act. I'm glad, but as of right now, I don't believe that there's any kind of tax breaks or any. Getting a grant.
Yeah. We're only.
Please.